We've all had a trip from hell. And mine was so bad, they wouldn't even put it in the Trip from Hell brochure. We all talk about our airline stories. And I remember I was getting ready to speak for the Canadian version of the IRS, Revenue Canada. Yep. Different name, same friendly attitude. And I remember that I was just swamped with work. I don't know how many of you do things like RFPs, requests for proposal. But I had two RFPs. One was a government one was a private sector one. And they usually involve 30, 40 pages of answering questions, learning points, almost scripting out everything you're going to talk about. I remember my emails were piling up. And just before I leave, I go to check my voicemail, and I get that message. Please delete unneeded messages. Your voicemail box is full. Stress level's just rising. How many of you had that message before? And I check them every day. And so here's my plan. I'm going to fly up to Canada. I'm going to check into the hotel room. I'm going to fire up the laptop. I'm going to get the RFPs done, answer the emails, answer the voicemails. Great plan. The only problem is that St. Catharines, where the program was being held, is the town where my grandmother lives in. How many of you have been to St. Catharines? Or anybody been to Niagara Falls? If you've been to Niagara Falls, you've been to St. Catharines. So now my plan is, I don't get up to Canada that often. So there's no way that I can go up to Canada, do a program in the town that my grandmother lives in, and not stop in for dinner and visit. So now the plan is to go up to Canada, have dinner with my grandma, get out of there as quickly as I can, get back to the hotel room, fire up the laptop. Bad plan. See, you have to understand my grandmother. She's from the old country. Anybody figure out what the old country is? Anybody figure out what kind of ethnic heritage you have to get stuck with a name like Vilis Ozols? Any guesses? So very close. A little country called Latvia, up in northeastern Europe. My parents, grandparents were born there. They came over here. Admit it. How many of you heard or saw the name Vilis Ozols and were worried I was going to be talking like Latka from Taxi? I've been in country very short distance only. Yeah, that would make for a long program, short speaking career. Talks like Latka, looks like Adam West from Batman. How's that for a B movie? And you have to understand my grandmother to understand what a lousy plan this was. She's stern and opinionated. My way or the highway. There's only two ways to do things, Grandma's way and the wrong way. In fact, I have a saying in my family, and that's, don't mess with Grandma. But what's the best way to describe it? She's like the matriarch of our family, the backbone of our family. In Latvian, there's a perfect word for it, but you wouldn't understand it. Well, you would. I just defined it. Ģimenes galva. And it's everything that I just described, but enveloped in love and admiration. And so I'm trying to get out of there, and I can tell she's hurt. She doesn't understand that I need to get to work. And so I think I've made my escape, and I'm on my way out the door. And with surprising strength for a 90-year-old woman, she grabs me by the arms, grabs me by the face, and tells me a story. She says, "Little Vili." It's always little Vili. She's looking up into my belt buckle, but it's little Vili. She says, "Little Vili, when we were leaving the old country, we were caught between the advancing Russian lines and the defending Nazis. Evil everywhere." That's the way she talks. She doesn't need words, she needs lyrics. And she said, in little town in Germany, Breslau, my husband, your grandfather, Vilis Ozols, that's how you got your name. Let's face it, I knew that. You don't go through life in North America with a name like Vilis Ozols without figuring out how you got labeled with that puppy. And so I've heard the story before. And do you ever have that little voice in your head that just says, shut up? And for whatever reason, I listened to it this time. And in the next breath, I heard a part of the experience that I'd never ever heard before. He said, yes, that night, he died. And we were surrounded. We had to escape. Only thing I salvage is the ring from his finger. And we escape. Little later on, we in new country. And I take his ring, and I take my ring, and I have them melted into cross. And I wear this cross around my neck every single day of my life. Well, then she reaches in underneath her flannel nightie, pulls out this chain with a substantial gold cross on it. And she says, little Willie, I don't know when I will ever see you again. I want you to have this. I felt about this tall. And we cried together. And I stayed another couple hours. And I never got the RFPs done, answered the voicemails, answered the emails. How often are we so busy making a living that we forget to live?